See, I told you all we needed was a layout.
We haven't finished yet. We need to put that controller down. Come on, let's get cracking.
Welcome back. We're back with Mike's fairly good idea. So Mike, since we left the layout last time, we left it with the bare scenics. You've since put in the road system, which we left drying. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, this is it's a GeoScenics product, and it's called the Pothole Road Kit. Basically, it's a couple of different coloured powders which you can use, and you can kind of create different effects of well, like a potholed road. So imagine like you're driving down a rough track, you kind of find you have little holes where there's gaps in the floor and stuff like that. So it does that kind of thing. I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. There's one thing I've still got to do. Actually, it's three things, but it's the same thing three times. I've got to put in the bits in between the rails here, just to make the road crossing complete. Because I wanted to give a way of vehicles to be able to get across into this area as well, to kind of give that kind of, again, that bit of context thing as well. So.
And so it's interesting to see how it built up with being a sort of powder. Yeah. Most people, or traditionally I've seen it been done with card or things you'd cut to shape and then paint or whatever, but this worked quite well.
I don't have the patience for cutting things to shape to go around track, and always find that it goes wrong. It's like the number of times that trains have brought the crossing out on top of Dale just because one bit of it's been out of line is ridiculous. Maybe I'm just not very good with plastic, but I'm quite good with powder, so...
Actually, it worked quite well, and it lends itself to this kind of railway as well.
It does, yeah. It's a nice technique. I think that actually, as a yard surface, I'd definitely be using this again for a model railway. I think it works really well as a yard surface type coverall, and yeah, I'm really pleased with the result of it. And actually now it's got that little bit of static grass going around it as well. It's starting to blend it into the scene as well, and a bit more work to do there as well to finish all that off.
And saying, you mentioned static grass. Of course, we've now added the static grass.
Yes, to most of the layout apart from this bit.
This bit. I'll come to that.
Actually, I'll come to that. Because I haven't quite got to the point of being ready to do static grass on this side either. But yeah, we've been cracking on with static grass, so we've got all the base layer of static grass now on most of the layout, which is really good progress. So the scenic's starting to come together from that point of view. And that is, again, we talked about layers in the last edition when we were looking at this. That's kind of a next layer of scenery, so there's still more layers to come to build all this together. So obviously, people who looked at the landscape in the real world realise that real grass can't grow on like, nearly vertical surfaces. So there's going to be a lot more texture and detail to go into this landform here to make it look really realistic and like that kind of landscape you'd see on the Ffestiniog. Because we were talking about this earlier, actually. The Ffestiniog is kind of this blend of landscape from kind of wooded, bushy areas lower down in the valley to kind of the high level bits where you get kind of slate everywhere.
Literally everywhere. Now, with your grass, I mean, you've used it on several layouts now.
One or two.
It's become very much your method of choice for grassing. What are some of the colours you've used?
Okay, so it's a mixture of different grasses I use, mainly from the green scene range, but we've got a bit of woodland scenics in here today as well. So from the green scene range, I use their spring, summer and straw colours, and I use them in the medium and the long length, so they're 4mm and 6mm, something like that. And then I've also used one of the woodland scenics darker greens as well, just to get out a little bit of a fleck of colour into it as well. So looking at it, you probably can't see it most of the time, but it just adds a little bit of difference here and there into the grass as well. And those colours all blended together give you a nice finished look to me.
And then, of course, you sprinkle fine turf onto it.
Yes, and then, there's more of the fine turf that we put down as a base layer. I kind of dust that into it. It just helps to fill some of the voids that might appear. And again, more layers, more detail. There's more to go on top of this.
And I have to say, it works very well.
It does, yeah. I've always been really pleased with the effects that I get from it. I've learned some new techniques with it, which we'll come on to a bit later in the process as well. And the more layers, the better, in my view.
So now I'm going to address the rabbit in the room. We have a slate mine.
It's North Wales, slate buildings, narrow gauge railway. I can't not have slate, can I? So the idea is that, I suppose, I'm not saying I'm 100% happy with it yet, but I'm getting there. Is to have kind of that idea of like the slate all tumbling down the landside down towards the railway, like you often see around the Ffestiniog railway, because you can still see it now. And I want to I'm not sure how far to continue that theme yet, but I'm making my decisions as I go.
So this was quite a new technique for you, as in first time trying it out. You didn't want me to film it. That's how new it was. So can you tell me what you did?
The technique is very basic. There's PVA on there, and I've sprinkled different types of slate from War World Scenics over the top of that. And then I've built that up in kind of layers to try and some slightly larger boulders, some smaller ones, so they all kind of, again, that whole word again, blending of layers together. And then over the top of that, I've added diluted PVA again to kind of fix all that into place. It's starting to take shape. I want to see how it dries. So that'll be leave it alone for 24 hours, see what happens with the glue and how it looks in the end. And then I'll decide how far over here I'm going to come with that kind of slate effect. Then obviously we've got a few bits of woodland scenics bushes going in there as well. It needs some bits just to blend it into the rest of the surroundings as well. It's one of the things I always find is very difficult to do with scenic. I'm not the world's best scenic model at the end of the day. I can make it look nice, but I wouldn't say I'm brilliant at it. For me, it just needs bits to kind of blend bits of model railway scenery together, which jar with one another. And that's where I find that fine leaf foliage is great.
Yeah. And to be fair, the slate scene is very Ffestiniog.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a very important part of it, and you'll see that slate theme is going to continue all the way around here. We've literally got a slate wall all the way around this side of the railway. I think, again, how it looks in here, if it transposes from here to here, this is going to look great around here. So.
Well, it's already starting to take shape, especially from how it was when it was just a grey baseboard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm really happy with how this area is starting to look now. This is starting to really fit together as I wanted it to. A couple of ideas about how to use this little patch here and stuff as well, and it's progress.
We're getting on to the fun bit. So Mike, ultimately, what's next?
What's next? Well, drying is what's immediately next. We've got to let all that dry, and then I'm going to start doing some work on the station side to sand down these platforms. So these platforms, they've got multiple layers of different coloured paints on them. And I've got, Mike Buick directly to blame for this, but also you in between, because this is your idea to do this as well. And what I've done is I've
keeps you busy.
Yeah, I've put these different layers of paint on, so I can use some very fine wet and dry to take some of that back. We should get a nice kind of tarmac finish over here. If that doesn't work, I've got another trick up my sleeve. So, and then from there, I've got a couple of ground signals to go in, because I want to have some illuminated ground signals on this, just to signal the trains in and out of the loop on this side. That will probably be the only signals there are on the layout. And then from there, we're going to start then actually really finishing off the static grass and then building up the depth of this that we've already done on this side. So it's then really detail all the way to reach the end result.
So you mentioned earlier to me you wanted to tell the story of really how the Ffestiniog starts. I suppose because it starts off at sea level and goes all the way up.
Yes.
How are we going to achieve that on an 8x2 board?
Well, we'll let the viewers be the judge of that. But the basic idea is that you start from your station and you'll go off into the hillside, and then you'll come around through kind of a wooded, bushy area on this part of the railway, where it's then starting to lead up to the higher end of the railway where you've got the slate at the top. And then you have to use a little bit more imagination because you're coming back around to the same station, but then you're coming round the curve into your top station. And that's kind of, I suppose, is my kind of idea of the journey along the Ffestiniog. So station, wooded area, slate mountain, top station.
It is quite an amazing railway in real life because, like you say, it goes through all those areas.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely going to be a lot more imagination involved in this because, like you say, it's only 8 foot by 2 foot 6. If we had 20 foot by 8 foot, then we might be able to do a lot more to it. So.
Well, we're slowly capturing the feel of the Ffestiniog.
Yeah, I hope so. I really like this little scene down here. I think this is going to be one of my favourite bits here. I've always liked it since I put this curved line around this edge here. And I want it to all feel very kind of restricted down there, because it's one of the things I've noticed in a lot of photographs of the Ffestiniog is that the railway is very tight against slate faces, rock faces, walling and bushes and grass and things as well. And actually I did notice that the brand new static grass down here, it's just brushing against the bottom of the bug coaches that run along this section of the line. So.
Just like the real thing.
Exactly.
Well, I for one am very excited about seeing where we go with it, or where you go with it. So, shall we get on?
Yes, progress. Time to move on again.
Tony's Trains of Rugby is located at Hillmorton Locks on the outskirts of Rugby. We are open Tuesday to Saturday 10 till 5 but closing early on Saturday at 4 o'clock. We stock Hornby, Bachmann, Graham Farish, Pico, Gauge Master, Haljan, Oxford and Oxford Diecast, Acura Scale and more. We also have a large selection of second-hand models to suit all budgets. You can either visit us in store or reach me on 01788 543 442, visit our website tonystrainsofrugby.com or find us on Facebook.
So my next task in the layout build now is to add a bit of colour and weathering to the track. So obviously the ballast is all quite fresh, being fresh out the tub and onto the layout, and naturally with a railway some of that gets a little bit tarnished and staining on it. So what I've done is I've mixed up a weak mixture of Woodland Scenics Asphalt Black with some water. So I've let that down quite significantly. So it's probably about 1 part paint to about 3 parts water, roughly there or thereabouts. So I might vary the mixture a bit as I go along. So like for example around the engine shed I'm going to want it to be a little bit more dirty there than I do out on the main line. So that mixture will vary depending on where I'm going. I'm just simply using a large brush to wash this onto the track. So it's very thin, so I don't actually really colour the track fully. I don't want to end up with the track looking black. I just want to tone down the very fresh look of the ballast as I go around the layout. Now, sometimes in the past on layouts I've done this with an airbrush. This time I thought I'd just do it by brush and have a different method to it as well. Either way, you'll be able to add weathering to your track. This is building on what we've already done with the track in terms of that original coat of matte 29, which went down over the track as it had been laid, which is then followed by a little bit of dry brushing as well, just to add some tone to the sleepers, and then I'm just going around and add the finishing touch now. So now I've toned down the track, the next job is to do the same with the rocks. I've got a slightly heavier mix of paint to water this time because I wanted to kind of settle in the rocks a little bit more, and I've also got a bit of rag with me as well. So if it does get a little bit too much paint on it, I can just blot it back a bit as well and just soften the effect. So I'm going to start on that corner, work my way around the rock face there. We'll hopefully have some nice looking slate rocks in a moment. So next, now that I've got all the weathering done, it's time to move on to the, well, one of the most fun parts of scenic modelling for me, which is adding all the detail and the texture on top of the base layers of grass we've got. I seem to have said base layers a lot of times for this, so we've done base layers of paint, then we've done base layers of green, then we've done base layers of static grass. But they are all, I suppose, they're in between layers now. But having reached that point, it's time to move on, get what I call the top layers on to really finish this off. So we've got 3 main product types I'm going to use for these finishing layers. First, we've got more static grass, so that's coming from the green scene and the woodland scenics ranges, and that's going to be mixed a little bit like I did before, so different mixtures of colours together in order to give a nice different flavour to the grass as it goes onto the layout. Then after that, I've also got some fine turfs. I'm using a collection of different fine turfs from Green Scene for this layout, and those are there to add a little bit more depth into that static grass as well, and kind of fill in some of the gaps. Like, for example, we've got some slightly bald patches on here. Adding some extra of those colours in is going to fill those out as well. The final texture I'm going to use is Woodland Scenic's coarse turf, and I've got a combination of their light green and their burnt grass colours. Again, same medium to hold them in place, just spray adhesive, actually spray varnish in this case, and that will hold all those together and fast onto the layout for the future. It's all a case of applying them together and seeing how the mood takes me as to where they go, but really it's about making that depth come together from these. So like I said, in terms of actually holding them in place, we're going to be using matte varnish, and then actually whilst I'm working on the layout, I don't always want the matte varnish to go everywhere, because, well, basically wherever the varnish goes, you're going to end up with grasses sticking to it, particularly when you're working with the static grass. So a small piece of card like this I use as a shield to cover off areas so that the static grass effects and the turf effects only go where I want them to go as well.
Hi, I'm Alex Yates and this is TMC, the Model Centre at Beck Hole near Whitby. We're down at the new mailroom at TMC where we can ship your orders worldwide. Here at TMC we do many limited editions. We've got our 24.5 tonne mineral wagons that have just come into stock, and we've got our G5 that is due in summer next year, and we've got many other limited editions available on our website. Here at TMC we stock all major brands including Hornby and Bachmann, and we also have a large range of pre-owned models all available in store and on our website. We offer customisation services when you buy a model from us, such as reel coal, cab crew, DCC sound, DCC, and any little customisation features that you want on your models. We also offer a weathering service. When you buy a model off our website we have tick box options so you can spec up the model as much or as little as you want. You can pre-order all future releases on our website with free postage over £50 and no deposit required. Whether you're a customer, old or new, visit us in person or visit our website, themodelcentre.com. We hope to see you soon.
So it's now time to improve the station, and I think one of the nice things we could do is add some working ground signals to this as well. They'll be able to signal trains in and out of the loops then as well, which I think will add that little bit of interest to trains moving around the layout as well. So to do that, I'm going to use some simple plug together electrical products from DCC Concepts. It's got their new ground signal interface boards, and I've got some of their working ground signals as well. So all I've got to do is drill a couple of holes to take the ground signal wires through underneath the layout. Then I can connect up the electrics underneath to the DCC Concepts cobalt point motor, and then when we switch the point, the signals will switch over as well. So it's a nice simple process, probably takes about 4 or 5 minutes to do, then we'll have working ground signals. So these are really cleverly designed. They're all designed to be plug and play for the electrical system. So you've got a small control board, which fits in the side of a cobalt point motor as well. You've got terminals on the end of the wires from the ground signals, and they plug into little connectors on the board here. And you also get a wiring harness to go from the ground signal interface board into the cobalt motor as well, which powers everything up. So it's a really simple process. Okay, so like I say, these are really simple to join together. We've got terminal blocks marked up for where the different connections go. So I've got a 3-wire lead here, which goes into that side. So that connects back to the DCC Concepts cobalt point motor. You've got these 3 wires here, which you've got black and red are the feeds, and the green one is used for the switching of it. So they go into the first 3 terminals on a DCC Concepts cobalt motor. So that's really nice and easy. And then on this side, we've got 2 terminals here, which is where you can plug in the signals. And quite cleverly, it is as simple as doing that. And once they're powered up, then the signals will turn on, and we'll have a fully working pair of ground signals which switch their aspect depending on the direction of the point as well. And cleverer still, these switch in opposite ways as well. So if that one's showing red, that one's showing green, and if that one's showing green, that one's showing red. So if we get them the wrong way around, I'll just unplug them and plug them back into the other terminals, and then they'll show the right aspect. I know this because I've already done it at the other end of the layout. So the best thing about this is it's completely solder free. In fact, actually, pretty much don't need any tools for this. The only thing you need is a drill to make a hole through the baseboard to take the signal wires straight through the baseboard surface, and the rest of it is just plug and play. Really simple. So next, having installed the ground signals, I'm going to move on and add some more detail to the platforms as well. So I've got some nice lamps, which are the DCC Concepts ones, which are now available through GaugeMaster. These ones are actually in my spares box, but happily they match the colour of the doors and the buildings as well. Nice and easy to install. You drill a 2.5mm hole through the baseboard, drop the lamp through, fix it in place with some glue, and then when you're ready, later on you can come back and wire them up as well, which is what I'll be doing today. So I'm not going to actually wire them up so they work. The other detail I'll add to the platform now as well is I've got some really nice ratio spear fencing. Again, it's reclaimed from a previous layout project. I like to recycle a bit of modelling equipment when we can. So that will give a nice line between the station platform and the road area in front as well. So we'll be able to populate those 2 areas slightly differently. So right, you can grab a drill, make some holes, plant some lamps, and add some fence.
Smith, and I'm the owner of Smith's Model Railways, based in Sheringham in Norfolk, just on the main high street, really close to the Norfolk Railway. So we stock from N gauge to O gauge, brands like Pico, Graham Farish, Hornby, Bachmann. Just launched our new loyalty card just after lockdown when we reopened. So we also offer these gift vouchers. You can either contact us via our telephone, email, or with our contact form on our website.
Wow, it's really starting to become something now.
It really is.
You've done so much since our last little segment. So going back to the scenery, what process brought us to here?
Okay, so where we left off last time, we've got like our first layer of static grass down. I've then spent a lot of time with, well, actually not a lot of time. I spent a bit of time with a can of matte varnish and more static grass together with Woodland Scenic's coarse turfs and some green scene fine scatters as well. And what I've done is I've used that matte varnish as the adhesive. So I sprayed that on, then apply more static grasses and the different textures on top of that to really build up the depth of the scenery. So now all our ground cover's got some really nice, well, I think, really nice depth and texture to it. I hope everyone agrees. So.
It looks really good. I particularly like the vertical faces where you've got the coarse turfs there. I thought you were going to use the clump foliage, which I thought would be a bit too much.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you've done this, and it really sort of lends itself to the scene.
Yeah, it had to be quite neat, this, because of the narrow gauge line, and also because of the proximity of the hillsides of the railway, which I wanted, because I want to kind of have that kind of enclosed feeling of a narrow gauge railway skimming the edge of a rock face kind of thing, or an embankment. So I needed something which could give me some quite neat vertical coverage. Couldn't just have grass, because grass doesn't tend to grow like at 90 degrees to the land, does it? So I thought actually this coarse turf, I've used exactly the same way to attach that. I've used the matte varnish to do that. I use a piece of card to protect the track whilst I'm doing it, and then work in small sections at a time and keep building it up and adding depth to it as well. And it's all that layers process all the time. More layers, more layers, more layers. And each of those layers blends another one together to give you the finished look.
I was quite amazed watching it come together, how much every extra layer really improved the scene. So I thought it was looking good, and then you'd add another layer, it looks even better. When do you know how to stop, or when to stop?
Well, when you're happy with it. I mean, at the end of the day, there is more I could do with this. I think that it could take maybe a bit of the fine leaf foliage around a few areas, which I will do, particularly like, for example, blending in this top row of rocks here. And then there's also some bits over there where it wants a bit of that. And there's a bit more of the slate work to go in as well. But ultimately, if I looked at this in a week's time, say, and went, do you know what? I'm looking at it now, actually thinking this already. This bit's a bit bald, a bit bland. Then I can do something with that. I just get the kind of spray varnish out, get the static grass out and some turfs again, and just keep working on it, adding more bits to it.
And one thing that's really standing out to me with the scene as it is right now, you've got no trees.
No, that's right. Well, I'm not really intending adding any trees, to be honest. I might add some, well, actually I will add some more of the fine leaf foliage, so like the little bushes around the edge there, but I didn't want any great massive height on top of here. I mean, looking at the landscape around this area, it is quite windswept on the top of the hills, and it is quite open as well. I'm convinced I've got a pack of sheep somewhere. I'd like to have them kind of up on this bit of land, but I do want to keep it quite open up here. This side, you'll probably have that slight feeling of bushes and trees with the fine leaf foliage when it works along this top edge of the rocks to blend things together again. But I don't want anything too grand or too big. There may be a reason to have a tree there, for example, but I'm not sure. We may add trees, we'll see.
But nothing on the main feature?
No, I don't intend adding anything on top of here of any great height. It doesn't need it in my mind.
Ironically, not having height with the scenery gives the feel that the layout is higher up.
Yes.
Further from sea level.
Yeah. I suppose that's kind of part of the trick with this, isn't it? We want to kind of represent something that is higher up in the mountains. And to do that, I suppose you've got to think about how that scenery would look in the real world. Maybe I've not done it perfectly, but it's certainly along the way.
It's looking good.
Yeah.
Now, coming to your new scene, the slate fascia,
Yep.
I think that's turned out really well.
So do I. The thing that for me really sets it off actually is the combination of the larger stones on the top and the ones around the bottom as well. Then we've got those rocks from the rock mould sticking out on this side as well. It just, I think it's got that right kind of blend of the grasses going into the slate as well, I think. So.
Yeah, there's enough elements to it to sort of blend it all in.
Yeah. Again, I think it's one of those things where you could tinker with it more, but I'm not sure it would actually benefit it if I was to tinker with it anymore.
It'd be very easy to overdo that, I think.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I mean, when you look really closely, one of the things I actually really like is I accidentally got a little bit of spillage of slate in here, and actually it's one of those happy accidents again where it's actually worked really well.
Now, moving on to what is the biggest change, I think, even though we've done all this scenery.
It's just a fence.
Yeah, the station.
Yes.
That's pretty much transformed.
It has now, yeah. I've done more than I planned to, actually. I wasn't planning on wiring the lamps up because I was kind of slightly conscious of time on the project that we got. And they're a little bit fiddly, these lamps to do, and I've got to be in the right frame of mind to do them at times.
Not sure turns out at the end of the day I can pressure you into do things.
Yeah, I'm not sure I was in the right frame of mind for it, but yeah, we got them done, so... the lamps actually, to be fair, actually they do make a difference to the station. The only thing now is I need to light the buildings because I can't have lamps and no station building lights.
Yeah.
So there's another job on the list now. But there's some simple ways to do that maybe.
But it really changes the feel of it, gives it a bit of atmosphere to the layout, I think.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, exactly. And that was always my plan with the lamps, that ultimately would be wired up, but I wasn't planning to do it now, like I said. But actually, even I think if they'd just been static, it would have added something to it, but maybe not enough.
I mean, even before the lamps, you decided to change tact on the station platform base, because we were going to do the paint layers first, and then you decided you like this ground cover so much by Geoscenics that you decided to do it on the station.
Well, it's actually it's that and the fact that I wasn't happy with how the layering effect was going. I wasn't happy with how the sanding was going. It was giving me the wrong kind of effect. And I think, well, I alluded to earlier in the video, I've got a plan sometimes, but sometimes the plan doesn't work. Yeah. So I'll change the plan as I go. And I think actually, for me, this feels quite narrow gauge-esque. It's got that kind of gravelly finished platform which I wanted. It's something I tried to do on Topperdale Station actually, but very badly. I'd admit that because I used far too heavy a gravel for it.
Yeah.
But this is much finer. It's very fine powder that's used for it, and it gives it that texture without giving it too much of a heavy texture.
And it really works.
Yeah, I mean, it's like our double O gauge passengers. They wouldn't trip up over the boulders on this, would they? Whereas they would on Topperdale's platform, the way it was done originally. So,
you almost use this stuff.
Yeah, big boulders, it'd be fine. So.
And then, of course, you've added the fence.
Yep.
Bit of the scenery. The buildings are now stuck in. The station with one door as opposed to two.
It's got 2 doors.
Don't ask that question. We've got ground signals.
Yes, yeah, working ground signals. I'm actually really pleased with those. I've been looking for a reason to use those properly at some point on a layout, and actually this has worked really well. I've used the DCC Concepts ground signals, and they're connected to work with the Cobalt point motors as well. So they've introduced a new ground signal interface board, which we had in the magazine a couple of issues ago, and that then makes it really simple, like amazingly simple, to add working ground signals to your points as well. If it took me 5 minutes to do each pair, that would be it.
I think for me, especially, the biggest thing that I enjoyed with them, enjoyed watching you do them, is they're all plug and play, no soldering.
Absolutely, yeah. There is
Amazing.
literally no soldering with them, which is fantastic. I mean, that is a really big plus point of them. And also, I really like the fact that actually with 2 ground signals plugged into one board, the 2 different ports work with each other. So one shows red and one shows green. And then when you change the point over, the signal aspects change. So, like, for example, each of the pairs of points here, I've got 2 signals. And the moment with the line set into the platform there, the signal outside the platform shows green, but the one in the platform for the little slate train here shows red. But when I change the point over, then they'll switch the other way around, so it'll show a red aspect for coming into the platform, but a green one for going out of it.
So through one action on the controller, you get almost 3 actions on the layout.
Exactly 3 actions on that, yeah. Because the point changes and both signal aspects change as well.
So you get a great deal of play value without it being overcomplicated.
Yeah, that's right. And there are other products available if you wanted to have full independent control of your signals as well. In that respect, you can do that as well with other parts of the DCC Concepts range as well. So they're really quite flexible in your approach to them too.
Right. I think that's us all caught up. So you've got to ask the big question, what can we possibly add now?
Well, we're now down to that point of detail and finishing. I think that there's a big missing part for me at the moment, and it's kind of what you alluded to earlier with the trees. There's a little bit of foliage needed just to give a little bit of density in places, and also we've got some edges along here that just need a bit of blending in to just finish off the layout. So they're going to definitely get some fine leaf foliage, so sort of overhanging the top of the rocks. I've done it before, it looks great when you do it, and it'll help fill in those like little bits where it's a little bit, not quite a perfect shape from my castings and stuff like that. So we'll do all that all around this side, and that'll blend that in. There's a few bits of that to go in on the other side as well. Bit more weathering in the engine shed. And then it's all about adding those finishing touches. So we need figures, we need road vehicles, we need platform furniture, we need slate, we need all those bits and pieces that are going to make this layout really become something.
You've got to have a VW on the layout somewhere.
There'll always be at least one, yeah.
But no, I think that's the best thing, you know, making little cameos, especially with Model U figures.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
Definitely, yeah. It's, actually, I've also got models of my own cars we could put on here as well. So.
Right, so it's time to get on.
It is. Next job, go and get the detailing box out. Let's get on. Let's make this really come to life.
I'm Anthony of AGR Model Railway Store in Leighton Buzzard, Bedfordshire. We stock the whole ranges for N, OO and O, all the major brands, for DC modelers and DCC modelers. We have a full DCC sound install, which can include sound, smoke and lights. We offer a range of Pico 009 exclusives, and we are also UK's biggest importer of Bachmann USA Thomas and Friends models. Got great links to the M1. We have mail order, which you can order through the website www.agrmodelrailwaystore.co.uk. We're actually just off the Lake Buzzard High Street. We're in High Street Mews, so if you look for Costa Coffee, directly opposite you can see us and the sign.
That's the best clip ever.
I'm Adam Davis of Rails of Sheffield Limited. We're a family-run business. We've been trading for over 50 years now. We've also been voted Retailer of the Year for the last 2 years running. We sell any age, any gauge, tens of thousands of items for all major manufacturers, continental, American,
from your N gauge, Z gauge, right up to live steam, ride on. We do many in-house exclusives, all available on our website, railsofsheffield.com. The address here is 21 to 29 Chesterfield Road, Sheffield, SA0RL.
So here we are, probably for the last time in this video. Is it finished?
I wouldn't call it finished. I'd say it's complete.
It's starting to look very complete.
Yeah, it
with all the
definitely is,
details you've just added.
Yeah, it definitely feels complete. I'd definitely say it's not finished though. And there's still loads more things you could do to this. There's little details and bits and pieces I think that would be nice to add to this to make it better than it already is.
So what did you, in the end, add to sort of get it to this level?
I suppose where we last were talking, actually, we got to the point where we got all the landscape was done, but there's all the kind of the blending in to do around the edges. I've added in the finely foliage along the top edge of all the rock face here, which is it's taken away some. There were a few sort of bad bits of paint, bad bits of joining between the rocks and the grassland, and just for me that just kind of finished that off. And it means that when you're looking from these nice low angles into the station, it's just got a nice dressing across the top. So that's really brought all that together. I've used some other bits of it around the layout as well. Actually, I quite like this little line across here and over the top of the wall down there. It's come out quite nicely. And a few more clumps around this corner as well. From there, it's been all about the actual detailing of the platform, and then the shed area, and then a few other bits on the landscape as well. So I started with the station. Obviously, we got to the point of having we've got lamps in. We've got fencing in as well, but it's looking quite bare. So I've added some platform benches, which were some dark castings. One's actually in a box of bits from Grosvenor Square, actually. So they were pre-painted and ready to go. Got a collection of, it's got some new custom 3D printed station signs, which, in case you're wondering what they say fairly good idea in Welsh. I really like those, actually. They've been custom made for us by Cheeky Tech, by Gary. So really pleased to have those in the layout. We've then got, there's figures, and obviously, actually quite pleased with how the figures look on here. We've got a combination of different figures on here as well. So we've got some Model U 3D printed figures which have been painted by Dan Everson. We've got some Bachmann Scenecraft out of the box ones, and we've also got the young boy and little granny on the platform on the bench, which are knock figures. Both those are HO scale, so they're both sat there swinging their legs.
So they look really tiny.
Yeah. Well, I thought we'd get away with it. Like little granny who's sat on the bench, it's a little bit high, and young lad sat there on the edge. He's just so excited to go and see the train. So. Then after that, there's also a few bits of platform furniture as well. So I've used some of the Bachmann platform furniture items. There's a nice telephone box, coal sacks outside the front door to the little station building, road vehicles, of course, which have got a small connection to my collection of vehicles, an AA bike as well for when they break down, particularly Land Rovers. And then there's all the purple caterpillars as well, as I've come to know them, which actually I wasn't sure about them when I first started putting those in. But actually now I've stepped back and I've done the photographs of the layout. I've actually looked at it and gone, do you know what, actually that's really worked to just set the scene of platform road. It creates that nice divide between the two.
We should say, for those at home, purple caterpillars are rows of sticky flowers.
Yeah, they're knock,
people are sat at home wondering.
Yeah. Purple knock flower strips, which they look like caterpillars. If anyone's seen like the moth caterpillars that hang around at sort of the autumn time, which are massive great things, which are all kind of spiky and have got different colours in the ends. Anyway, we digress.
It's nice to know.
Yes.
So,
those kind of things.
Coming to this side of the layout, and dare I say it, the more exciting side, the engine shed.
Yes, I'm actually really pleased with the shed in the end.
You went to town on the engine shed.
Well, it kind of worked because it's small, and that's one of the beauties of this. It's actually been a smaller layout. You can add a little bit more to it. It's like traditionally when I built engine sheds, it's like I think of like the roundhouse we've got on Grosvenor Square, where that engine shed on its own is bigger than this two boards here, and that's just the shed area, that layout. So it's nice to have a small shed to kind of go to town on, and I've got a pile of bits I'd already acquired actually for doing some more work on top of the layout actually. So I've got some more, all those already been painted, little things like there's some Model U hose reel, there's a couple of sand jugs, and there's some oil cans as well, a couple of loco lamps, stand pipes, all those kind of little bits and pieces that kind of just bring a little bit of life to a scene as well. So it's handy to already acquired those for another project, but they fitted in perfectly here as well.
And the best part of the really fine details is you can't really see them when you're looking at the broad layout, but as soon as you get close in or taking a photo, bam,
That's right, yeah.
You've got
They
the
all stand
detail.
out, yeah. And I found a little collection of fire irons and stuff in my box of bits and pieces of train. There's boxes of stuff. I'm sure everyone else has a box of bits like that. But mine is ridiculously complicated and full of all kinds of magical things, many of which I have no idea when I'll ever use, but one day I'll need them, so they'll stay in there.
So one thing I find quite astonishing is the engine shed area, the amount of layers you've added to build it up.
Oh, in terms of the paint, yeah, I mean, it's been quite nice to be able to put that kind of effort into that small area. And the paint started with that first wash of very thin black that I put over the rest of the track bed. But obviously for an engine shed, it was never going to look right in that context, was it? So I started off then for the second layer by adding Life Colours smoke liquid pigment, which you don't even have to let down to go through an airbrush either, which is great, saves a bit of time and faff. Put a layer of that down over most of where I wanted the darker colours. Then I added on top of that some of the MIG engine grime as well, and that's given a nice kind of, it's sort of a fuel-y, oily colour, so it's got a little bit of sheen to it as well. It's like you look around a steam depot, you often see there's kind of these sort of, there's very sooty black colour everywhere. There's also kind of bits where it's shiny. That's where you got oil that's dripped from motion and things like that as well, so I kind of wanted to replicate that. Then I used a couple of pigments as well, so I've used metal slag from the same MIG ammo set as well, which just added a bit of a browny texture to some areas around the shed there. And then finally I've used some of the wilder old grease effect as well, which is, it's a nice sort of, though it's got that kind of texture again. You feel like you could get your hands dirty in there, as I did earlier. So I've also added some other bits and pieces on there as well. I wanted to add some heaps of coal around the depot as well, and I didn't really want to have to go down the route of having to wait for PVA glue to dry, so I just used my matte varnish technique that I use for this, and it's allowed me to put some really fine sprinklers of coal like around in front of the logos over there, but also build some larger piles as well, because I didn't want huge big stacks of coal everywhere. So it's just, again, I think for me at least, it's got that right kind of feel about it.
Definitely less is more.
Yeah, I think so, especially with this narrow gauge kind of stuff as well. I didn't want it to be big mountains of coal here and stuff. It needs to be kind of quite subtle, I suppose. They've chopped off a couple of bits of spare rail section as well, and done a handful of sleepers to have lying around the yard as well, just to add a bit of colour.
And of course, the most important detail of the layout, on the hills, you've added your sheep.
Absolutely. Well, I've had these sitting in the box of bits again, waiting forever to go onto a layout, and they fit perfectly on here. I quite like them for the fact that actually, and the reasons I shouldn't like them, but I like it for the fact that they're all exactly the same pose, and they're all rams as well, which would never happen in the real world. So you never get a field of rams. So
You might have to paint them.
yeah. They've all got horns, so I have to shave their ears and stuff. But I like them. They're one of those classic packs, aren't they? Yeah.
I think as modelers, we've all had that pack of matching animals from years gone by.
Yeah.
Where you've got every cow or every horse is exactly the same.
Yeah. And I kind of like that. It's a bit of a kind of a nod back to like the history of Hornby, isn't it, as well? So
it's a proper classic model railway thing, that.
Yeah.
So I mean, for those at home, this has been brought to you over the course of 2 months, really.
Yes.
But in reality, it's actually taken us 5 days.
Yeah, it's about 5
start
days
to
work.
finish.
Yeah, maybe 5.5 now actually. We're certainly around that kind of marker. I mean, originally when I set out to build this, I did set it as a lot shorter timescale, but I think I added to what we were doing along the way. It's like I hadn't intended doing lamps in the station. I hadn't intended adding ground signals to it.
I twisted your arm.
You did. You did. I moaned about that. But I probably wasn't quite planning to go quite as far as I have it with it at this stage. I was planning for it to look nice and look complete again, but I wasn't planning for it to look quite as complete as it does. But it's all those bits and pieces that actually really add the time. So it's like we've had a working railway since, well, pretty much day one.
First hour.
Yeah, first hour, yeah.
Priority number one.
A little bit longer than that. I think it took us probably about 2.5, 3 hours to get from the point of cutting the first piece of timber to having the train running, which is not bad really, is it? So.
Is there anything in hindsight, admittedly you're at the end of a 5th day, that you would do differently if you were to do it again, or would you add to it?
If I was to add something to it at this point, I would be looking to add more detail to what I've got. I think actually for what I wanted from the layout, dare I say it's done everything I wanted it to. It's one of those things, for this layout, I had my vision before we'd even had the conversation about it. It's like, I know what I'm doing, I know what I want to build, I know how I'm going to do it, I know how the track layout's going to look, and I had this vision in mind of how it's going to be. All I had to do was translate what was in here to on one of these boards.
You just wanted an 8-foot excuse to buy a Double Fairlie.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think actually if I was to do it differently and I had like no pressure of time, because that's probably one of the things that's very different for us, is that whilst in the real world you wouldn't build a layout in 5 days because, well, you haven't got any need to do, but we obviously have to meet deadlines and things, so we do have to fit these things in, and we kind of work on that basis. But if
we've done all right.
Yeah, I think with time on my side, I would be having some drop sections of baseboard as well. I think there'd definitely be like this corner, for example. I'd want that to go away to being a rock face below the railway, so you kind of had that kind of feel of it's a very Ffestiniog-y thing that the land goes below and above it, and very steeply in both ways, which is probably one of the things that's kind of missing from this layout, I think.
Yeah, you wouldn't add lights to the buildings.
I would add lights to the buildings as well, yes. Yeah.
I'll twist your arm for more electric.
I'd probably add another 6 inches onto the front of the layout, and maybe another 3 inches on that side, and then
Falla Road.
Falla Road. No, it doesn't need a Falla Road on this. It's, but I think for what it is, I think it works really well. But there are other things I could do with it. But it's again that whole time, money, space, no object thing, isn't it? Yeah, I think actually my concept when I started on this was how can we build a working, interesting model railway in 8 foot by 2 to 2.5 foot wide. So hopefully
that's interesting. Fun to play with.
Yeah.
Challenges you, and you can try something new.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose that's the other thing with this as well. Actually, along the way, I've tried lots of little new techniques as well. It's like tiny little things, like I've left these bare bits of mud on the side. I actually really like them. They just add a little bit of touch of character to it. And we were talking about this earlier actually with like the grass as well. It's like each time I do model railway grass, I think, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I do a better job each time. I'm sure you'd correct me if I was wrong.
Just more layers each time.
Yeah, more layers, but I think it's not just about more layers. I think it's about how you use the products as well and how you combine them together. It's like we were talking earlier in the video about the this area down here.
Yeah.
And you were saying, you thought when I was going to do it originally, I was just going to get blocks of fine leaf foliage and shove it in and be done with it. It's like, well, I kind of did, but I did it in a different way. But it was subtler to suit the narrow gauge theme as well. So
took a bit more skill this time.
Yeah, maybe. More. Well, I'm not sure it was any more skill, but I think it just took a different approach, maybe.
And of course, you got Slate Mountain.
Yeah, I like Slate Mountain in the end. Actually, I wasn't sure about it.
I think that comes out really well.
Yeah, no one's allowed to dislike that.
Yeah. Comments are just going to go nuts.
Yeah. Everybody hates Slate Mountain.
And talking of the comments, of course, the benefit of hindsight, we did have some eagle-eyed viewers who did notice we put the signals in the wrong way around, so the trains are on the left.
Yes, in loops here, yeah. Do you know what? It was funny when I was doing the signals. I was thinking, well, I'm doing this for standard British railway practice. Is the Ffestiniog the same? Because not all railways operate the same, do they?
Nope.
And I should have switched to European mode to do that. So, but then I would have had to move my water tower as well, and switch all the signals over. So, yeah, tough.
Editor's license.
Yes, editor's license. That's the one. Yeah, it's the more polite way of doing it, isn't it? So,
no, and to be fair, I've been to the Ffestiniog. I spent a lot of time filming the Ffestiniog, and didn't even click until someone pointed it out, and you think, easily done.
Yeah, it's Richard's fault. He did the real. You went to the real railway, not me. Should I have been to the Ffestiniog railway many times?
So I think that brings us happily to the end of this little build series. Mike, if you want to see more on the build series, where can they find it?
Right, so you've got two choices for how you can see more on our build. We've got two features that have got into the magazine. One is in issue 175, that was our January 2022 issue, which was on sale during December. That is available to buy as a back issue, and that's the first part of the build, which goes from the baseboards up to the point of having a raw scenic landscape formed. And then the second part is in issue 176, that's our February 2022 issue, which is on sale from January the 12th in all good newsagents and grocery shops and model shops, and also online from shop.keypublishing.com. As another alternative, because there are more alternatives, if you want to read it online as well, if you're one of our digital subscribers or a Hornby Magazine subscriber with digital access, you can read both features online at keymodelworld.com as well.
And of course the reality check feature on the Double Fairlie itself.
That's right, well actually talking of Double Fairlies, reality check, full class history on the Double Fairlies. That's from issue 175, plus we've also got our full review of the Double Fairlie on there. Plus we've also got a video with that as well of the model running here on the layout, so you can see more about the actual Double Fairlie model itself. And if that's not enough Double Fairlie for you and you want a little bit more, there's also a full sound demonstration for the Bachmann sound fitted model as well.
That was fairly intensive.
It was fairly intensive, yes. We were fairly ambitious with our content list.
Right, before these puns get any worse, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching, as ever. Take care, and we'll see you on our next video.
Fairly well.
Bye for now.
I'm Jack, and welcome to Hatton's Model Railways in Widnes. Here at Hatton's, we stock over 13,000 different product lines, and we also have a huge range of pre-owned items ranging from everything from UK outline, USA outline, Japan. You can also sign up to daily notifications, so whenever we add new pre-owned stock, you can go straight to the website and get first dibs on those too. We also offer a trunk service here at Hatton's that enables you to purchase items and make sure you've secured them. We'll keep them here safely for you, and you can even combine them with other orders and have them all shipped out together. That even enables you to save on postage costs, and is great for overseas customers as well. So we're here in our curbside pickup lockers, so anyone who is local to Hatton's, you can have your order placed online or over the phone and have it placed in one of our lockers as you see here. Truly easy to just come and collect your key, pick it up any time of day, 24/7, you can come and pick up your order. Our customer experience team is available from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m, 7 days a week UK time. You can place orders, query anything, and you can also speak to our product expert team who are available to give you expert full-on guidance with our entire product range. They can get in touch via email, social media, live chat, or phone.